can't believe this happening. I have to keep going.
The night air whipped through the open car window as Keisha's hands trembled on the steering wheel. The wedding dress, Hannah's wedding dress, was torn at the shoulder, the delicate lace catching on the gear shift every time she tried to accelerate. Mascara streaked down her mahogany cheeks in dark rivers, and her breath came in ragged gasps that fogged the windshield. The voice message played again through the car's speakers, Jin-Woo's deep voice filling the small space like a physical presence. "Keisha, please, come back. I love you." She let out a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob, her full lips twisting bitterly. "You don't love me," she whispered to the empty car, to the night, to the man who couldn't hear her. "You love her. I was just a replacement." The highway stretched endlessly before her, yellow lines blurring through her tears. She didn't know where she was going. Away. That was all that mattered. Away from the penthouse, away from the life she'd foolishly let herself believe could be hers. Away from the man who had looked at her with those intense dark eyes and made her forget, just for a moment, that she was nothing more than a maid he'd traded for like property. Her phone buzzed again. Jin-Woo. Always Jin-Woo. Keisha pulled over to the shoulder, the car lurching as she hit the brakes too hard. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely grip the steering wheel. She looked down at her left hand, at the engagement ring that caught the moonlight and threw it back in fractured pieces. 3 carats of lies. Of hope she should have never allowed herself to feel. She started to slide it off her finger. Headlights appeared in her rearview mirror. Black SUV. His car. Panic seized her chest. She threw the ring into the cup holder and slammed her foot on the accelerator, the tires squealing as she pulled back onto the highway. The speedometer climbed 60, 70, 80 miles per hour. The wedding dress billowed around her legs like a ghost. Her phone rang. She answered without thinking, desperate and furious and heartbroken all at once. "I'm not letting you run from this," Jin-Woo's voice came through, calm and controlled in that way that made her want to scream. "From us! There is no us!" Keisha's voice cracked, raw with emotion. "There never was!" The line went dead. But that moment, that desperate flight through the darkness, was not the beginning. To understand how Keisha Williams ended up behind the wheel in a stolen wedding dress, her heart shattered and her future uncertain, the story had to rewind. Back to 2 months earlier, back to when she was just a maid, invisible and unremarkable, living a small life in the shadows of other people's wealth. Back to the night everything changed. 2 months earlier, the Chen mansion was quiet at 9 in the evening, the kind of heavy silence that came with old money and older secrets. Keisha moved through the West Wing library with practiced efficiency, her cleaning cart wheels squeaking softly against the marble floors. She wore her standard uniform, a simple black dress that fell to her knees, sensible flats, her natural hair pulled back in a tight bun that made her high cheekbones even more prominent. In her other hand, she balanced her accounting textbook, open to Chapter 12, Advanced Financial Analysis. She'd been reading the same paragraph for 10 minutes, trying to memorize the formula for calculating depreciation while simultaneously dusting the built-in bookshelves that housed Mr. Chen's collection of first editions. Her life was a careful balance of invisibility and ambition. By day and most nights, she was the maid. By stolen moments, she was a student at the community college online program, inching toward a degree that felt both desperately close and impossibly far away. She was 26 years old, and sometimes she felt ancient, tired, like she'd been climbing uphill her entire life and had barely moved an inch. The foster care system had taught her to be small, to take up as little space as possible, to never ask for too much. Even now, in a mansion with 12 bedrooms and 8 bathrooms, she still slept in the smallest room in the staff wing, a converted storage closet with a twin bed and a window that wouldn't quite close all the way. She was used to being overlooked. She'd built a life around it. So when Mr. Chen appeared in the library doorway, his face drawn and anxious in a way she'd never seen before, Keisha quickly closed her textbook and tucked it under a pile of cleaning cloths. "Mr. Chen," she said, startled, "I'm almost finished here. I can move to the—" "Leave it," he said, his voice tight. He ran a hand through his graying hair, making it stand up at odd angles. I need you to serve tea in my study. I have guests arriving. Keisha blinked. Mr. Chen had never asked her to serve before. He had a personal assistant who handled his business meetings, a chef who managed entertaining. She was the cleaning staff. The help who stayed out of sight. Of course, she said, because what else could she say? And Keisha, Mr. Chen added, his tired eyes meeting hers for just a moment. These are important men, very important. Keep your head down, serve the tea and leave quickly. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't look at them unless necessary. Just be invisible. Something in his tone made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. But she nodded. Being invisible was something she'd perfected long ago. 20 minutes later, she stood outside Mr. Chen's study with a silver tea service, her heart beating faster than it should. Through the thick wooden door, she could hear voices, Mr. Chen's nervous tenor and two others. One voice was smooth, almost charming. The other was quieter, but somehow it commanded more attention. There was steel beneath the silk. She knocked softly. "Come in," Mr. Chen called. Keisha pushed open the door with her hip, keeping her eyes down as she'd been instructed. The study was all dark wood and leather, the air heavy with cigar smoke and tension. She could feel eyes on her as she entered, tracking her movement across the Persian rug to the side table, where she began to arrange the tea service. "Chen, your staff is quite striking," one of the men said, the charming voice. "Is she single?" Keisha's hands stilled for just a fraction of a second on the teapot handle. Heat crept up her neck. "She's just the maid," Mr. Chen said quickly, dismissively, and something in Keisha's chest tightened at how easily he reduced her to nothing. "What do you think, Park?" the charming man continued. "Pretty, isn't she?" Silence. The kind of silence that filled a room and pressed against the walls. Keisha couldn't help herself. She looked up. The man they called Park sat in the leather chair by the fireplace, and when their eyes met, the world seemed to tilt on its axis. He was tall, she could tell even though he was seated, with broad shoulders encased in a perfectly tailored navy suit that probably cost more than she made in 6 months. His black hair was slicked back from a face that was all sharp angles and intense focus, but it was his eyes that stopped her breath. Dark and fathomless, they locked onto hers with an intensity that made her feel stripped bare, seen in a way she'd never been seen before. Something shifted in his expression. Recognition? No, that wasn't possible. They'd never met. But there was something there, something that made his jaw tighten and his fingers curl against the armrest of his chair. The moment stretched between them, elastic and impossible to break. "Park?" the other man prompted, amusement clear in his voice. The man called Park didn't look away from Keisha. "Yes," he said softly. "She's beautiful." Keisha's heart slammed against her ribs. She tore her gaze away, focusing desperately on pouring the tea, even though her hands were shaking so badly she was afraid she'd spill it. What was wrong with her? Men didn't look at her like that. Men like him, powerful, wealthy, dangerous. They didn't even see women like her. She was the help, invisible. But she could feel his eyes on her still, tracking every movement as she set out the cups, added the sugar cubes, arranged the small spoons just so. "We were discussing territory," Mr. Chen said, his voice higher than normal, nervous. "The eastern shipping routes specifically." "Yes," the charming man said. Keisha risked a glance at him. He was handsome in a softer way than Park, with warm brown eyes and an easy smile that didn't quite reach those eyes. "You see, Park here has been monopolizing certain opportunities. I was hoping we could come to an arrangement." "I don't make arrangements," Park said, his voice low and final. He still hadn't looked away from Keisha. "I make decisions." "Come now," the charming man laughed. "Everything is negotiable. Tell you what, Park, name your price. What would it take for you to give me the eastern routes without a fight?" Keisha finished with the tea service. She should leave now. Mr. Chen had said to be quick, but her feet wouldn't move. Something was about to happen. She could feel it in the air, electric and inevitable. Park leaned back in his chair, his intense gaze finally, leaving Keisha to sweep across the room. But then, slowly, deliberately, His eyes came back to her. Held. "The maid," he said. The words hung in the air like smoke. Keisha's blood turned to ice. "What?" The charming man laughed, but it sounded uncertain now. Park stood, and Keisha's breath caught at his full height. He was at least 6'1", all lean muscle and controlled power. He crossed the space between them in 3 strides, and suddenly he was standing in front of her, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Something expensive and dark, cedar and smoke. "Come with me," he said, speaking directly to her for the first time, his voice pitched low so only she could hear. "I'll give you everything you've ever wanted. Education, freedom, a life beyond this." Keisha's mouth went dry. Her mind raced, trying to understand what was happening. "I don't even know you," she whispered. Something flickered in those dark eyes. Not quite a smile, but close. "But I know you, Keisha. I've been watching you for 3 months." Terror shot through her veins, cold and sharp. How did he know her name? How had he been watching her? She'd noticed nothing. No one. She prided herself on being aware, on staying safe. But this man, this stranger in his expensive suit with his dangerous eyes, he'd been watching her, and she'd never known. "This is insane," the charming man said, standing now too. "Park, you're joking. A maid for the eastern routes? For millions in territory?" Park didn't turn around. He kept his eyes locked on Keisha's face, and she felt pinned by that gaze, unable to move, unable to think clearly. "Do I look like I'm joking?" Mr. Chen started, then stopped, cleared his throat. "Keisha is my employee. I can't just—" "Deal," the charming man interrupted, and Keisha's head whipped toward him. He was studying her now with new eyes, calculating. A slow smile spread across his face. "Take her, Park. The eastern routes are yours. But when you realize she's not who you think she is—" He paused, his smile widening. "Remember, I offered first." Keisha's world spun. This couldn't be happening. People didn't trade other people. Not in America, not in the 21st century, not in real life. But Mr. Chen was already nodding, relief flooding his tired features. And the charming man, who she now understood must be Sungmin based on their earlier conversation, was settling back into his chair like he just won something. And Park, Jin-Woo Park. He was still standing in front of her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body, could see the way his jaw clenched and unclenched like he was wrestling with something internal. "No," Keisha said. Her voice came out smaller than she wanted, but at least it came out. "No, I'm not. You can't just decide this. I have rights. I'm not property." "You're right," Jin-Woo said, and for a moment hope flared in her chest. But then he continued, "You're not property. You're a choice, and I'm giving you one now. Come with me willingly, or stay here with a man who just traded you away to save his own skin." Keisha's eyes darted to Mr. Chen, hoping to see denial there, hoping he would stand up and tell these men they were insane, that she was a person, that this was America, and you couldn't just barter human beings like livestock. But Mr. Chen wouldn't meet her eyes. He stared at his desk, at the papers scattered there, at anything but her face. He'd really done it, agreed to give her away like she was a lamp or a painting or a set of dishes. Something inside her chest cracked, a fissure she'd spent years trying to seal. The foster care system had taught her that people were temporary, that attachments were dangerous, that she could only ever rely on herself. She'd thought she'd learned that lesson. Apparently not well enough. "You have 10 seconds to decide," Jin-Woo said, his voice still low, still calm, like he was discussing the weather and not upending her entire existence. 9, 8. "This is insane," Keisha breathed. 7, 6. "You're insane. 5, 4. She looked at Mr. Chen one more time. He'd employed her for 3 years. 3 years of cleaning his mansion, of being professional and reliable and invisible, and he couldn't even look at her now. 3, 2. Keisha grabbed her textbook from where she'd hidden it under the cleaning cloths. If she was going to whatever hell this was leading to, she wasn't leaving behind the one thing that mattered. "Fine," she said, the word tasting like ash. "Fine. I'll go with you." Jin-Woo's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Satisfaction? Relief? She couldn't read him. Smart choice, he said, and then, without warning, his hand closed around her wrist. Not painfully, but firmly, possessively. We're leaving. Now. He moved toward the door, pulling her along, and Keisha stumbled in her sensible flats, trying to keep up with his long strides. Behind them, she heard Sungmin's voice, tinged with something that sounded almost like warning. Enjoy your prize, Park. But remember, when you realize the truth, I'll still be here. What truth? What was he talking about? But there was no time to ask, no time to think, because Jin-Woo was pulling her through the mansion she'd cleaned 1,000 times, past the paintings and sculptures, and all the beautiful things that had never really belonged to her anyway. She caught a glimpse of herself in one of the hallway mirrors, wide dark eyes, lips parted in shock, her natural hair already starting to escape from its bun. She looked terrified. She was terrified. The night air hit her like a slap when they emerged from the mansion. A black SUV waited in the circular driveway, engine running, a driver in the front seat who didn't even blink when Jin-Woo opened the back door and guided her inside with a hand on her lower back. Wait, Keisha said, finding her voice again as reality crashed over her. My things, my clothes, my laptop, I'll have them sent, Jin-Woo said, sliding in beside her. The door closed with a heavy thunk that sounded like finality, like a cell door locking. Or I'll buy you new ones, better ones. The car pulled away from the mansion, and Keisha watched through the back window as her life for the past 3 years disappeared into the darkness. Her room in the staff wing, her routine, her small, careful existence, gone. She turned to face Jin-Woo, who sat beside her in the leather seat like a king on a throne. Up close, in the dim light of the car's interior, he was even more devastating. Sharp jawline, perfect bone structure, those intense eyes that seemed to see straight through her skin to whatever lay beneath. What do you want from me? She asked, proud that her voice didn't shake, even though everything inside her was trembling. Jin-Woo was quiet for a long moment, studying her face in a way that made her skin prickle. Nothing you're not willing to give, he finally said. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting tonight. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, then pocketed it again. We'll be at my place in 20 minutes. You should rest. Rest? Keisha's voice pitched higher. You just bought me, or traded for me, or whatever that was, and you think I'm going to rest? I didn't buy you, Jin-Woo said, and there was an edge to his voice now, the first real emotion she'd heard from him. I acquired territorial rights in exchange for removing you from a situation where you were clearly undervalued. That's the same thing. No, he said, turning to face her fully. In the enclosed space of the car, he seemed even larger, even more overwhelming. It's not. Chen saw you as disposable. I see you as invaluable. You don't even know me. Something dark flickered across his face. I know more than you think. Those words, I've been watching you for 3 months, echoed in her memory, and Keisha felt goosebumps rise along her arms despite the car's heated interior. That's creepy. You know that's creepy, right? Jin-Woo's lips curved. Not quite a smile, but close. Probably, but it's also true. Keisha wanted to argue more, wanted to demand he turn the car around, wanted to do something other than sit here in shock paralysis. But exhaustion was starting to creep in around the edges of her panic, the adrenaline crash making her limbs feel heavy. She clutched her accounting textbook against her chest like a shield and stared out the window at the passing city lights. They drove through downtown, then into an area of Los Angeles Keisha had only seen in magazines. High-rises that pierced the sky, luxury brands glowing in shop windows, restaurants where meals probably cost more than her monthly rent. The SUV pulled into an underground parking garage beneath one of the tallest buildings, and Keisha's stomach dropped. This was real. This was actually happening. Jin-Woo helped her out of the car. His hand on her elbow was gentle but firm, like he expected her to bolt, and guided her to a private elevator. The driver stayed behind. It was just the two of them in the gleaming metal box as it shot upward, floor numbers climbing. 20, 30, 40, 50. The elevator opened directly into a penthouse that took Keisha's breath away, despite her fear. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the entire Los Angeles skyline, lights twinkling like fallen stars. The floors were dark hardwood, the furniture modern and minimal, everything in shades of black, white, and steel gray. It looked like something from a movie, not like a place where real people actually lived. "This way," Jin-Woo said, his hand still on her elbow, guiding her down a hallway. Keisha's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. This was the moment when she found out what he really wanted from her, what he expected in exchange for whatever insane deal he'd made with Sungmin. Her mind raced through possibilities, each one worse than the last. But Jin-Woo stopped in front of a door, pushed it open, and gestured for her to enter. "This is your room." Keisha stepped inside, her sensible flat silent on the plush carpet. The bedroom was bigger than her entire staff quarters back at the Chen mansion. A king-size bed dominated one wall, made up in white linens that looked like clouds. There was a sitting area with a cream-colored love seat, a desk with a lamp, and she felt tears prick at her eyes. A bookshelf, empty and waiting. "The bathroom is through there," Jin-Woo said, pointing to another door. "You'll find everything you need. Towels, toiletries, a robe. I'll have clothes delivered tomorrow, but there should be something in the closet that will fit for tonight." Keisha turned to look at him, confusion warring with fear. "I don't understand. What is this?" "Your room," he repeated. He stepped inside just far enough to point to the door handle. "The lock is on the inside. You can lock me out if you want to. You're safe here, Keisha." "Safe?" She let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "You kidnapped me. I rescued you," he countered, his voice hardening. "Chen was going to lose that mansion within 6 months. Gambling debts. You would have been out on the street with no references, no savings, no way to finish your degree." He paused, his dark eyes boring into hers. "I'm giving you a chance at something better." "Why?" The question burst out of her. "Why me? Why would you trade valuable territory for a maid you don't even know?" Jin-Woo's jaw tightened. For a long moment he didn't answer, and Keisha thought maybe he wouldn't. But then he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out his phone. He scrolled through it, found something, and held it out to her. Keisha took the phone with trembling fingers. On the screen was a photograph of a young woman, Korean, beautiful, with delicate features and long black hair. She was smiling at the camera, genuine joy lighting up her face. "Her name was Maya," Jin-Woo said quietly. "She died 5 years ago." Keisha looked from the photo to Jin-Woo's face and back again. "I'm sorry for your loss, but I don't—" "Look at her, Keisha. Really look." Keisha did, and then her breath caught in her throat. The woman's face was different. The features, the coloring, the heritage. But there was something about her, the shape of her eyes, the curve of her smile, the way she held herself. It was like looking at a mirror that showed not her reflection, but her echo. "I'm not her," Keisha whispered. "I know," Jin-Woo said, and there was so much pain in those 2 words that Keisha's heart clenched despite everything. "That's why you're here, to help me remember that." He turned and walked to the door, paused in the doorway without looking back. "Get some rest. We'll talk more in the morning." "Wait," Keisha said. "I have questions. I have so many questions." "I know, but not tonight. Tonight, just rest. Please." And then he was gone, the door closing softly behind him, leaving Keisha alone in the beautiful room with a phone in her hand showing a dead woman's face and a million questions racing through her mind. Keisha didn't sleep. How could she? Instead, she spent the night exploring her gilded cage, torn between wonder and terror. The bathroom alone was larger than her old room, all white marble and gold fixtures, with a bathtub deep enough to drown in, and a shower that had more settings than her laptop. The closet held several silk robes and a few simple dresses in various sizes, all expensive, all tags still attached. She tried the door lock. It worked. She could lock Jin-Woo out if she wanted to, but she couldn't lock herself in, couldn't make this any less real. Around 3 in the morning, she gave up on even pretending to sleep and explored the rest of the room more thoroughly. The desk drawers were empty except for expensive stationery and a set of pens that probably cost more than her textbook. The bookshelf called to her, and she placed her accounting book on the middle shelf, where it looked small and out of place among all that empty space. She found Maya's photo still on Jin-Woo's phone. He'd left it behind, she realized now. Had he meant to? Or had grief made him careless? She studied the image, zooming in on the woman's face. Maya had been around Keisha's age when the photo was taken, maybe a year or two younger. There was something carefree in her expression, something light that Keisha had never possessed. Maya looked like someone who'd been loved, protected, cherished. Keisha looked like someone who'd learned early that love was conditional and protection was temporary. She set the phone on the nightstand, face down. She couldn't keep looking at a ghost. Around 5:30, exhaustion finally dragged her under. She curled up on top of the cloud-like comforter, still in her maid's uniform, and fell into a restless sleep filled with dark eyes and warnings she couldn't quite remember when she woke. The sound of voices pulled her from sleep. Keisha sat up, disoriented. Her natural hair half escaped from its bun and falling around her face. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, making her squint. The voices were coming from somewhere else in the penthouse. Jin-Woo's voice, low and controlled, and someone else, an older woman. Keisha stood, smoothing down her wrinkled uniform. She caught sight of herself in the mirror above the dresser and winced. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman who'd been uprooted from her life in the middle of the night. Her dark eyes were shadowed with exhaustion, her full lips pressed into a tight line. She should change, should at least try one of the robes, but that felt like acceptance, like admitting this was her life now. So she finger-combed her hair back into some semblance of order and ventured out of the room. The penthouse was even more stunning in daylight. Art on the walls that looked original and probably priceless. Furniture that was beautiful and uncomfortable in equal measure. Designed to impress, not to live in. Everything was immaculate, perfect, cold. Like a museum, like a mausoleum. She followed the voices to a kitchen that was all gleaming stainless steel and black granite. Jin-Woo stood by the coffee maker, still in dress pants and a white button-down. No tie, the top button undone. He looked like he'd been up for hours, or maybe he'd never gone to sleep at all. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, but his back was straight, his jaw set. An older Korean woman stood near the stove, petite and gentle-looking, with graying hair pulled back in a neat bun. She wore a simple house dress and an apron, and when she saw Keisha in the doorway, her kind eyes widened. "Oh," she said softly. "Oh my." Jin-Woo turned, and his gaze locked onto Keisha with that same intensity from the night before. Something flickered across his face, too quick for her to read, before his expression shuddered again into careful neutrality. "Keisha," he said, "this is Mrs. Lee. She manages the household." Mrs. Lee was staring at Keisha like she'd seen a ghost. Her hand came up to her mouth, trembling. "Sir," she whispered, "she looks—" "I know," Jin-Woo cut her off, his voice sharp enough that Mrs. Lee flinched. "Keisha, Mrs. Lee will help you with anything you need. Clothes, food, whatever. Just ask." "I need to leave," Keisha said. "I need to go back to my life." "That's not an option. You can't keep me here. This is kidnapping. False imprisonment. I could call the police." "With what phone?" Jin-Woo asked, and Keisha's stomach dropped when she realized she'd left his phone in her room. Her own phone was still back at the Chen mansion, probably in her locker in the staff wing. "And tell them what? That you came here willingly? That I've given you a bedroom with a lock and offered you everything you need?" "I didn't come willingly," Keisha shot back. "You gave me 10 seconds to decide and then dragged me out. 9 seconds, actually. You decided on one." He poured coffee into 2 mugs, black for himself, and then looked at her expectantly. "How do you take yours?" The casual question, the domesticity of it, made something inside her snap. "I don't want your coffee. I don't want your room or your clothes or whatever sick game this is. I want to understand what you want from me." Jin-Woo set down the coffee pot with careful precision. "You'll take meals with me," he said, 3 times a day, starting now. "Why?" "Because I want to know you." Keisha laughed, the sound sharp and humorless. "You've been watching me for 3 months. You already know me." "No," he said, and something in his voice made her breath catch. "I know your routine, your schedule. The way you hide your textbook when Chen walks by, the way you take the bus instead of the employee shuttle to save money. I know the facts of your life, Keisha. I don't know you. The specificity of his knowledge should have terrified her. It did terrify her. But there was something else there too, something that felt almost like being seen, really seen, not just looked at. What if I don't want you to know me? She asked quietly. Jin-Woo picked up both coffee mugs and crossed the kitchen to the breakfast bar, where two stools waited. He set the mugs down, then looked at her. Then I'll wait until you do. Mrs. Lee had disappeared at some point during their exchange, leaving them alone in the cavernous kitchen. Keisha stood in the doorway, weighing her options. She could refuse. Could go back to the bedroom and lock the door and try to figure out a way to escape. But her stomach was growling, and she was so tired of fighting, and something about the way Jin-Woo looked at her, not like Chen had looked at her, not seeing through her, but at her, made her feet move forward almost against her will. She climbed onto the stool, keeping as much distance between them as the breakfast bar would allow. The coffee was perfect. Cream and 1 sugar, exactly how she liked it. She looked at him sharply. You know how I take my coffee? I know everything about you, he said simply. Or I thought I did. His dark eyes studied her face. But there's a difference between knowing facts and knowing a person. So tell me something I don't know. Something real. Keisha wrapped her hands around the warm mug. I don't owe you anything. No, he agreed. You don't. But we're going to be spending a lot of time together. We could make it pleasant, or we could make it a war. Your choice. This isn't a choice. This is captivity with nice furniture. Jin-Woo's jaw tightened. You're right, I'm sorry. I'm not good at this. The admission surprised her enough that she took a sip of coffee, buying time to think. He wasn't what she'd expected. The man from last night had been cold, controlled, commanding. This man seemed almost uncertain, almost human. What were you good at? She asked before she could stop herself. Before you became whatever you are now? Something dark crossed his face. Nothing. I was good at nothing except disappointing my family and making terrible choices. He drank his coffee, grimaced like it burned. And then I met Maya, and I thought maybe I could be good at something. Good for someone. What happened to her? The question was too personal, too intimate for a conversation between captor and captive. But Keisha found she wanted to know, needed to know maybe, to understand why she was here. She died in a car accident, Jin-Woo said, his voice carefully flat. 5 years ago. She was 25. We were engaged. 25. The same age Keisha had been when her own life had fallen apart, when she'd aged out of foster care with nothing but a GED and determination. She pushed the parallel away. She was nothing like Maya. They might have similar features, but that was where the comparison ended. I'm sorry, Keisha said, and meant it despite everything. Don't be. Jin-Woo set down his mug. She wouldn't want your pity. She hated pity. He trailed off, staring at something Keisha couldn't see. Strong, fearless. She challenged me constantly, made me want to be better than I was. And you think I can do that? Keisha asked. Replace her? No, Jin-Woo said sharply, his eyes snapping back to hers. That's not... He stopped, took a breath. I'm not playing replacement girlfriend. The echo of what she'd been thinking made Keisha's spine straighten. Good, because I don't want a replacement. I want you to be yourself. Wait, those were his words. He'd said that to her, but hearing them back seemed to affect him, like she'd reached through his armor and touched something vulnerable. Tell me about your dreams, he said after a long moment. Your accounting degree, what do you want to do with it? Keisha hesitated. This felt dangerous somehow, like sharing pieces of herself would give him power over her. But maybe he already had that power. Maybe the only thing she had left was the choice of what to do with it. I want to work for the FBI, she said. The admission tasted like truth. Financial Crimes Division. I want to help catch people who cheat and steal and hurt others through money. She paused, looked at him directly. People like you, probably. Jin-Woo's lips curved into something that might have been a smile if it held any warmth. Probably, he agreed. Are you any good? At accounting? I'm the top student in my online program. Keisha said, pride creeping into her voice despite her best efforts. 4.0 GPA. I would have graduated this year if... She trailed off. If Chen hadn't traded her away, if her life hadn't imploded, if. You will graduate, Jin-Woo said with absolute certainty. This year, on schedule, I'll make sure of it. How? I can't exactly attend my classes from here. You can attend them online. You have been, haven't you? He pulled out his phone, a different one from last night, and typed something quickly. I'm having a laptop delivered, top of the line. Whatever you need for your coursework, you'll have it. Keisha stared at him. Why would you do that? Because you want it, he said simply. And because keeping you from your dreams would make me the villain in this story. I'm trying very hard not to be the villain, Keisha. You traded for me like I was property, she pointed out. I removed you from a bad situation and offered you something better, without asking me. Would you have said yes if I'd asked? He challenged. Keisha opened her mouth to say, of course not, but the words stuck in her throat. Would she have? If this man had approached her differently, offered her education and safety, and a chance at something more than cleaning mansions for minimum wage? She wanted to believe she would have refused, but she wasn't sure. That's what I thought, Jin-Woo said, reading her silence correctly. He stood, carried his empty mug to the sink. I'm not the villain, Keisha, but I'm not the hero either. I'm just a man trying to keep a promise to someone who's no longer here to hold me to it. What promise? He turned to face her, and in the morning light streaming through the windows, he looked exhausted, haunted. To be better, to protect people who need protecting, to not let anyone else disappear into the cracks. His eyes met hers. The way you were disappearing. The words hit harder than they should have, because he was right. She had been disappearing, invisible in Chen's mansion, invisible in the foster care system before that, invisible everywhere she'd ever been. Just another statistic, another girl no one would miss. But Jin-Woo Park had seen her, had watched her for 3 months, had traded valuable territory just to pull her out of obscurity. She should have been more afraid of that. Maybe she was. Or maybe, and this was the terrifying part, maybe she was grateful too. The days that followed developed a rhythm that felt both surreal and strangely comfortable. Jin-Woo kept his word about the meals. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They sat together. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they sat in silence. But he never demanded anything from her. Never pushed for more than she was willing to give. The laptop arrived on the second day, along with boxes of clothes in exactly her size. Keisha tried not to think about how he knew her measurements, tried not to feel violated by the intimacy of that knowledge. Instead, she focused on the practical, jeans that actually fit her curves, sweaters soft enough to sleep in, undergarments that weren't worn thin from too many washes. Mrs. Lee was a quiet presence, appearing with meals and fresh towels, tidying the penthouse with an efficiency that made Keisha feel both grateful and obsolete. Sometimes Keisha caught the older woman watching her with this look, part wonder, part sadness, that made her skin prickle. On the third night, Keisha couldn't sleep again. Her internal clock was still adjusting, her mind still racing with questions she didn't know how to ask. She wandered out to the kitchen around midnight, hoping for tea, and found Jin-Woo already there, standing by the window with a glass of whiskey in his hand. He was silhouetted against the city lights, still in his dress pants and buttoned down from whatever business he'd conducted that day. His shoulders were tense, his head bowed. He looked like a man carrying the weight of the world. Can't sleep either, Keisha asked softly, not wanting to startle him. Jin-Woo turned, and in the low light, his face was all shadows and sharp angles. I don't sleep much, he admitted. Haven't for 5 years. Since Maya died. He didn't say it, but Keisha heard it anyway. She moved to the kitchen, found the kettle, filled it with water. The domestic normalcy of the action felt absurd. What do you do instead? When you can't sleep? Work. Or stand here and pretend the city looks different at night than it does during the day. He took a sip of his whiskey. What about you? What keeps you awake? Everything, Keisha said honestly. The kettle began to heat, a low hum filling the silence. My life 2 weeks ago. My life now. The fact that I'm having a normal conversation with the man who traded territory for me, like I was a used car. Jin-Woo's lips twitched. You're worth significantly more than a used car. How comforting. I'm not good at comfort, he said. I'm good at control, at strategy, at knowing what needs to be done and doing it, regardless of cost. And what needs to be done with me? Keisha asked, leaning against the counter as the kettle heated behind her. What's the end game here, Jin-Woo? You can't keep me forever. Eventually I'll leave, or you'll get bored, or I won't get bored. His voice was sharp, certain. And you won't leave. Not yet. That sounds like a threat. It's a promise. He crossed the kitchen to stand in front of her, and Keisha's breath caught at the sudden proximity. He was tall enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes, close enough that she could smell the whiskey on his breath and the cedar in his cologne. I promised Maya I would be better, that I would protect people who needed it, that I wouldn't let the world swallow anyone else whole. I don't need protecting, Keisha said, but her voice wavered. Yes, you do. You just don't know it yet. His hand came up, not touching her, but hovering near her face like he wanted to, but couldn't quite allow himself. Sungmin said something when he agreed to the trade. Do you remember? Keisha did. He said when you realize I'm not who you think I am, you'd remember he offered first. What did he mean by that? I don't know. Jin-Woo's jaw clenched. But Sungmin doesn't say things without purpose. He knows something about you, something I don't. The kettle began to whistle, a sharp sound that broke the tension between them. Keisha turned to deal with it, grateful for the excuse to look away from those intense dark eyes. She made her tea with hands that shook slightly, hyper-aware of Jin-Woo standing right behind her. You said you've been watching me for 3 months, Keisha said, keeping her back to him. What did you see? What made you decide I was worth millions in territory? Silence, then. I saw someone who was disappearing. Someone brilliant and ambitious who was being wasted scrubbing floors for a man who didn't appreciate her. I saw someone who studied accounting textbooks while cleaning libraries, who saved every penny to finish a degree online because no one else was going to help her do it. He paused. I saw someone who deserved more than the hand she'd been dealt. Keisha turned to face him, clutching her tea mug like a lifeline. Or you saw someone who looked like your dead fiancé and decided playing savior would ease your guilt. Jin-Woo flinched like she'd struck him. Good. She wanted him to hurt the way she was hurting, wanted him to feel off balance and uncertain and afraid. You're right, he said quietly. At first, that's exactly what I saw. I saw Maya's face in yours and thought maybe I could have a second chance, could rewrite history. He set down his whiskey glass with a soft click against the granite. But then you spoke to me that first night, challenged me, looked at me like I was insane, which I probably am, and I realized you're nothing like her, nothing at all. Then why am I still here? Because you're better than her, Jin-Woo said, and the raw honesty in his voice made Keisha's chest tighten. Maya was beautiful and fierce, and I loved her, but she was fragile in ways she never wanted to admit. You? His eyes locked onto hers. You're steel wrapped in silk. You survived a system designed to break people. You're fighting for a future most people would have given up on. You look at me without fear even when you should be terrified. I am terrified, Keisha whispered. I know, but you're still here, still fighting. That takes courage Maya never had. He reached out slowly, telegraphing his movement, and when Keisha didn't pull away, his fingers brushed against her cheek. The touch was feather-light, tentative. You're beautiful when you're focused. Did you know that? When you're working through a problem, you get this little crease right here. His thumb touched the space between her eyebrows. And you bite your lower lip without realizing it. Keisha's breath stuttered. She should step back, should push him away. But her body betrayed her, leaning into his touch like a flower toward sunlight. This is insane, she breathed. Probably, Jin-Woo agreed. His other hand came up to cup her face, cradling it with a gentleness that contrasted sharply with the intensity in his eyes. I should let you rest, should walk away, should give you space. Then why don't you? Because I almost reached for your hand in the kitchen this morning and then pulled back because I thought it would scare you. Because watching you curl up on the couch with your textbook makes me feel something I haven't felt in 5 years. Because he stopped, his jaw working like the words were fighting to stay inside. Because what? Keisha prompted, her own voice barely above a whisper. Because when I look at you, I don't see Maya anymore. I just see you. And that terrifies me more than anything. The admission hung between them, vulnerable and raw. Keisha could feel her heartbeat in her throat, could feel the heat of his hands against her skin. This was dangerous. This was exactly what she should avoid. She was trapped here, dependent on him, in no position to be feeling what she was feeling. But God, when was the last time anyone had touched her like this? Like she was precious? Like she mattered? I should go back to my room, she said, but she didn't move. You should, Jin-Woo agreed, but his thumbs traced small circles on her cheekbones, and his gaze dropped to her lips. Jin-Woo, I know, I'm sorry, I shouldn't. He started to pull back, but Keisha's hands came up of their own accord, gripping his wrists, not pushing him away, holding him there. Don't apologize, she said. Just, I need you to be honest with me about everything, about why I'm really here, about what you want from me, about... A phone rang, sharp and jarring in the intimate quiet. Jin-Woo's phone in his pocket. He closed his eyes, his jaw clenching, and for a moment Keisha thought he would ignore it. But then he stepped back, his hands falling away from her face, leaving cold air in their wake. He pulled out his phone, looked at the screen, and his expression darkened. I have to take this. Now? It's after midnight. Business doesn't sleep. He was already moving toward his study, phone to his ear. Mrs. Lee will be here in the morning. Get some rest, Keisha. And then he was gone, leaving her alone in the kitchen with her cooling tea and a chest full of feelings she didn't want to examine too closely. Keisha made her way back to her room on shaking legs. She locked the door, force of habit now, and sat on the edge of the bed, trying to process what had just happened. Jin-Woo Park had almost kissed her. More than that, she had almost let him. Had wanted him to. This was Stockholm Syndrome, probably. Some psychological response to being held captive, even in a gilded cage. That's what she told herself. But she knew it wasn't quite that simple, because Jin-Woo wasn't forcing her to stay. He'd given her a locked door, privacy, everything she needed to feel safe. He was showing her a future she'd never dared to dream of. Education without debt, security without sacrifice. He was offering her freedom, just in a cage with invisible bars. Keisha lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Her old life felt like something that had happened to someone else. The staff room at Chen's mansion, the bus rides to community college, the constant struggle to make ends meet while chasing a degree that always seemed just out of reach. That Keisha felt small and scared and desperate. This Keisha, the one lying in a king-size bed in a penthouse, the one who'd let a dangerous man touch her face with heartbreaking tenderness. She didn't know who this Keisha was yet. Didn't know if she wanted to. Sleep took a long time to come, and when it finally did, her dreams were full of dark eyes and whispered promises and a dead woman's face that looked too much like her own. She woke to sunlight and the smell of coffee. For a disoriented moment, she thought she was back at Chen's, that she'd overslept and would be late starting her morning cleaning routine. Then reality crashed back, and she remembered where she was, who she was with, what her life had become. Keisha showered, taking longer than necessary under the rainfall showerhead, trying to wash away the memory of Jin-Woo's hands on her face. It didn't work. She could still feel the ghost of his touch, could still hear the raw honesty in his voice when he'd said, "You're better than her." She dressed in jeans and a soft gray sweater from the clothes he'd provided, left her natural hair loose for once, instead of pulling it back into her usual bun. A small rebellion, a small claim to agency in a life where most of her choices had been taken away. When she emerged from her room, she found Mrs. Lee in the kitchen, preparing breakfast. The older woman looked up and smiled, but there was something in her eyes, that same mixture of wonder and sadness Keisha had seen before. "Good morning, dear," Mrs. Lee said. "Mr. Park had to leave early for a meeting, but he left instructions for your breakfast. He said you prefer scrambled eggs with cheese, wheat toast, and orange juice." Of course he knew that. He knew everything about her. "Thank you," Keisha said, settling onto one of the breakfast bar stools. She watched Mrs. Lee work for a moment, then asked, "How long have you worked for Jin-Woo?" 15 years, Mrs. Lee said, cracking eggs into a bowl. "Since he was 17 and first left his family's home. I've been with him through many difficult times." "You knew Maya?" Mrs. Lee's hands stilled. She was quiet for so long that Keisha thought maybe she wouldn't answer. But then, "Yes, I knew Maya. She was a lovely girl, kind, intelligent. She made Mr. Park happy for a time." "What happened to her? Really?" Mrs. Lee resumed whisking the eggs, her movements careful and deliberate. "That's not my story to tell, dear, but—" She paused, seemed to be weighing something. "You should ask Mr. Park about Maya's diary, about what she wrote in the weeks before she died." A diary. Keisha filed that information away, her mind already racing. "Where is it?" "I don't know, but I know he reads it sometimes, late at night, when he thinks no one is watching." Mrs. Lee poured the eggs into a heated pan. "He's been reading it more often since you arrived." That should have felt invasive, creepy even. But instead, Keisha felt a strange flutter in her chest. Like maybe she wasn't the only one being pulled into something neither of them understood. After breakfast, Keisha set up her laptop in the bedroom and tried to focus on her coursework. She had an exam next week on advanced taxation principles, and she couldn't afford to fall behind. But her mind kept wandering to Jin-Woo, to the almost kiss in the kitchen, to Mrs. Lee's cryptic words about Maya's diary. She was so focused on trying not to focus that she didn't hear her bedroom door open, didn't realize she wasn't alone until Jin-Woo's voice said, "You left your hair down?" Keisha spun around in the desk chair, her heart leaping into her throat. Jin-Woo stood in the doorway. When had she unlocked it? Still in his business suit, but with his tie loosened and his hair slightly disheveled. He looked tired. He looked beautiful. "I didn't hear you come home," Keisha said, closing her laptop. "I'm good at being quiet." He stepped into the room, and Keisha was acutely aware that they were alone, that her bed was right there, that the memory of last night hung between them like smoke. "I have something for you." He held out a small box, velvet and expensive looking. Keisha stared at it, her stomach twisting. "What is it?" "Open it and see." Keisha took the box with hesitant fingers. Inside was a phone, sleek, new, top of the line. Her throat tightened. "It's programmed with everything you need," Jin-Woo said. "My number, Mrs. Lee's, emergency contacts. You can call anyone you want, your friends from school, your old co-workers." He paused. "You can even call the police if you want to leave. I won't stop you." Keisha looked up at him sharply. "You're giving me a way to escape?" "I'm giving you a choice," he corrected. "I should have done that from the beginning. Should have asked instead of taking. So I'm asking now. Stay. Please, let me give you the life you deserve. Let me—" He stopped, his jaw working. "Let me prove I'm not the villain. And if I want to leave—" Something dark flickered across his face, there and gone in an instant. "Then I'll call you a car and make sure you get wherever you want to go safely. I'll transfer money into an account in your name, enough to finish your degree and start your life. I won't contact you again." Each word sounded like it cost him something. "But I'm hoping you'll stay." Keisha held the phone, feeling its weight in her palm. Freedom. He was offering her freedom. All she had to do was make a call, and she could walk away from this. From him. From whatever dangerous thing was building between them. But where would she go? Back to Chen's mansion, where she'd been traded away like furniture? Back to her tiny studio apartment she could barely afford? Back to a life of struggling and scraping and being invisible? Or forward, into the unknown, into a future that terrified and tempted her in equal measure? "I need time to think," Keisha said quietly. Jin-Woo nodded, like he'd expected that answer. "Take all the time you need." He turned to leave, then paused in the doorway. "For what it's worth, Keisha, I hope you stay. Not because I need you to ease my guilt or fill some hole Maya left behind, but because I want you to. Because when you're here, this place feels less like a mausoleum and more like a home. Because—" He stopped, shook his head. "I should let you rest." Jin-Woo, Keisha called before he could disappear. He turned back, and in the afternoon light from her windows, he looked younger somehow, vulnerable. Thank you for the choice. He smiled, small but genuine. You're welcome. After he left, Keisha sat on her bed with the phone in her hands and tried to decide who she was. The girl who ran from danger? Or the woman who walked toward it, eyes wide open? Keisha didn't call anyone. Not that day or the next, or the day after that. The phone sat on her nightstand like a test she hadn't decided whether to pass or fail. Sometimes she picked it up, scrolled through the contacts Jin-Woo had programmed, her study group from the online program, the friends she'd made at the community college library, even Chen's landline. Her thumb hovered over the numbers, but she never pressed dial. Because the truth was, she wasn't sure what she would say. Hi, I was traded to a Korean Mafia boss, and now I'm living in a penthouse, and he bought me a laptop and looks at me like I'm the only thing keeping him tethered to the earth? Yeah, that would go over well. By the end of the first week, a routine had solidified. Mornings started with breakfast together, Jin-Woo asking about her classes, Keisha deflecting with questions about his work that he never quite answered. He enrolled her officially in her spring semester courses, paid the tuition without blinking. When her textbooks arrived, he watched her unpack them with an expression that was almost tender. You really love this, he said one morning, watching her trace the spine of her financial forensics textbook. Numbers, patterns, finding the truth hidden in data. It's the only thing that ever made sense to me, Keisha admitted. People lie. They hide things. They pretend. They disappoint you. But numbers don't lie. They tell you exactly what happened if you know how to read them. That's why you want to work for the FBI, Jin-Woo said. To catch people who lie with numbers. To catch people who hurt others and hide behind money to do it. She looked at him pointedly. People like you. Instead of being offended, Jin-Woo smiled. Actually smiled, full and genuine, and it transformed his face from beautiful to devastating. Then I'll have to be very careful about my accounting practices. The comment should have been a red flag, should have reminded her who and what he was, but instead it made her laugh, and the sound surprised them both. The days developed a rhythm. Mornings were for classes and studying. Jin-Woo disappeared for most of the day. Business, he said vaguely, but he always came back for lunch. They'd eat together, usually sandwiches Mrs. Lee prepared, and talk about everything and nothing. He asked about her childhood in foster care, and she found herself telling him stories she'd never shared with anyone. About the families who'd taken her in and sent her back, about the group homes where survival meant being invisible, about the social worker who'd helped her get her GED and told her she was smart enough for college if she wanted it badly enough. Did you believe her? Jin-Woo asked. That you were smart enough? No, Keisha said honestly, but I wanted to prove her right more than I believed she was wrong. So I tried anyway. That's courage, Jin-Woo said. Real courage. Not the absence of fear, but moving forward despite it. Is that what you're doing? Keisha asked. With me? Moving forward despite fear? Jin-Woo's dark eyes held hers. Every single day. Afternoons were hers. She studied while Jin-Woo worked in his home office. The door always slightly ajar like an invitation she wasn't sure how to accept. Evenings were dinner, more elaborate meals that Mrs. Lee prepared with obvious care. Sometimes Jin-Woo cooked instead, and Keisha discovered he was surprisingly competent in the kitchen, his movements precise and controlled even when dicing vegetables. Maya taught me, he said one night, catching her watching him work. She said a man who couldn't feed himself was half a person. It was the first time he'd mentioned Maya unprompted, and Keisha felt the shift in the air like a change in barometric pressure. Tell me about her, she said. Really tell me. Not just that she looked like me or that you loved her. Who was she? Jin-Woo was quiet for so long that Keisha thought he wouldn't answer. But then, she was the daughter of a wealthy Korean family. Traditional, conservative. We met at a charity gala that I was required to attend for business. She spilled champagne on my suit and laughed instead of apologizing. His knife stilled on the cutting board. She was supposed to be meek and obedient, the perfect Korean daughter, but she was fire-wrapped in silk. She challenged me constantly, made me question everything I thought I knew about myself. You loved her, Keisha said quietly. I did, desperately. She was the first person who ever looked at me and saw someone worth saving. He resumed chopping, his movements a little more forceful now. She was studying accounting, actually, at UCLA. She wanted to be a forensic accountant, too. Keisha's breath caught. That's a coincidence. Jin-Woo's smile was bitter. Maybe, or maybe I was drawn to you because of it. Because I saw Maya's dream alive in you when it died with her. The words should have hurt, should have made Keisha angry, but instead she felt a strange kinship with the ghost of this woman she'd never met. What happened to her, Jin-Woo? Really? She died in a car accident, he said, the same answer he'd given before. But this time, there was something else in his voice, something that sounded like doubt. That's what the police said. Single vehicle collision on Mulholland Drive. Her car went off the road. She died instantly. But you don't believe that. Jin-Woo's knuckles were white around the knife handle. I don't know what I believe anymore. He set down the knife, turned to face her. She'd been acting strange in the weeks before she died. Distracted, scared maybe. She stopped coming to my place as often, stopped answering my calls right away. When I asked her what was wrong, she said she had something to tell me, something important, something that would change everything. Did she tell you? No. She died 2 days before we were supposed to meet. He leaned back against the counter, and in the kitchen's warm lighting, he looked haunted. I've spent 5 years wondering what she was going to say. What secret was important enough to scare her? What truth she discovered that maybe got her killed? The implication hung in the air between them. You think someone murdered her? I think Maya was brilliant and careful and an excellent driver. I think she was investigating something. Her personal laptop was wiped clean after she died, all her files gone. I think, he stopped, shook his head. I think I'm paranoid and grief-stricken and looking for someone to blame besides the universe for taking her from me. Keisha crossed the kitchen to stand in front of him. Without thinking, she reached out and took his hand. His fingers were cold despite the warmth of the kitchen, and they tightened around hers like she was an anchor. I'm sorry, she said, for your loss, for the not knowing. That must be worse than anything. It is, Jin-Woo admitted. His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand, the touch absent and intimate at once. But then you appeared, and suddenly I had something else to focus on besides grief. Someone else to protect besides a memory. I don't need protecting, Keisha started, but Jin-Woo cut her off. Everyone needs protecting, Keisha. The question is whether they'll admit it. His free hand came up to cup her face, that gesture that was becoming familiar, achingly tender. Let me protect you. Let me give you everything you deserve. Education, safety, a future without struggle. In exchange for what? Keisha whispered, because there was always an exchange. Nothing was free, especially not from men like Jin-Woo Park. Nothing, he said. Just be here. Let me know you. Let me... He stopped, his jaw clenching like he was physically holding back words. Let me try to be better than I was. For Maya? For you. The admission hung between them, heavy with meaning. Keisha's heart hammered against her ribs, and she knew she should step back, should remember that this man had traded for her, that she was here not entirely by choice. But his hand on her face was so gentle, and his eyes held such raw honesty. And when was the last time anyone had looked at her like she mattered? Like she was worth something more than the minimum wage Chen had paid her? Jin-Woo, she breathed, and she wasn't sure if it was a warning or a plea. I know, he said. I know this is complicated. I know I took your choice away, and I'm trying to give it back. I know you have every reason to hate me. His thumb brushed across her lower lip, and Keisha's breath stuttered. But I can't stop thinking about you. Can't stop wanting to know everything about you. Can't stop hoping that maybe somehow you'll look at me and see something worth... Keisha kissed him. She didn't plan it, didn't think it through. One moment she was listening to him bare his soul in a kitchen that smelled like garlic and hope, and the next her lips were on his, and her hands were fisting in his shirt, and she was drowning in the taste of him. Jin-Woo made a sound low in his throat, surprise or maybe relief, and then his arms were around her, pulling her close, one hand tangling in her natural hair, while the other pressed against the small of her back. He kissed her like she was air, and he'd been suffocating, like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking for 5 years. It should have been wrong, should have felt like capitulation, like giving in to her captor. But instead, it felt like choice, like power, like maybe for the first time in her life, Keisha Williams was taking something she wanted instead of accepting what she was given. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jin-Woo pressed his forehead against hers. "I need you to be sure," he said, his voice rough. "I need you to tell me this is what you want. Because if we do this, if we cross this line, I won't be able to go back to seeing you as just someone I'm protecting. I won't be able to pretend I don't want you." "I'm not sure of anything," Keisha admitted, "except that I'm tired of being afraid, tired of playing it safe, tired of being invisible." She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "I see you, Jin-Woo Park, all your grief and guilt and desperate need to be better than you think you are. And I'm choosing this, choosing you, for now, for tonight. Maybe that's enough." "It's more than enough," Jin-Woo said. And then he was kissing her again, slower this time, deeper. His hands mapped her body with a reverence that made her feel cherished instead of claimed. When he lifted her onto the kitchen counter, she went willingly, wrapping her legs around his waist and letting herself fall into the moment, into him. But before things could progress further, Jin-Woo pulled back, breathing hard. "Not here," he said. "Not in the kitchen where Mrs. Lee makes breakfast. You deserve better than that." "Your room?" Keisha suggested, surprised by her own boldness. Something dark and hungry flashed in Jin-Woo's eyes. "My room," he agreed. He lifted her off the counter, but instead of putting her down, he carried her. Actually carried her, like she weighed nothing, through the penthouse to the master bedroom she'd never seen before. It was as stark as the rest of the place, all black and gray and white, minimal furniture, everything precise and controlled, except for one wall, which was covered in photographs of Maya. Maya laughing, Maya serious, Maya in a cap and gown, Maya with her arm around Jin-Woo's waist, looking up at him with adoration. Keisha's stomach dropped. "Jin-Woo," she said, pulling back. "I can't, not with her watching." Jin-Woo followed her gaze to the wall and seemed to see it for the first time in a long time. His jaw clenched. "You're right. I'm sorry. I should have..." He set Keisha down carefully, then crossed to the wall. Without hesitation, he began taking down the photographs. All of them, one by one, methodically, placing them face down on his dresser. "What are you doing?" Keisha asked, her throat tight. "Letting go," Jin-Woo said simply. When the wall was bare, he turned back to her. "I loved Maya. I'll always love the memory of her. But she's gone, and you're here, and I'm choosing to move forward instead of living in the past." He crossed back to Keisha, cupped her face in both hands. "I'm choosing you. Present tense. Not as a replacement, not as a second chance. Just you." Tears pricked at Keisha's eyes. "What if I hurt you? What if I'm not what you need? Then you hurt me. Then we figure it out together." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the corner of her mouth. "I'm not expecting you to save me, Keisha. I'm not expecting you to be anything other than who you are. But I am hoping, maybe foolishly, that we can save each other. Just a little bit." Keisha pulled him down into another kiss, and this time when they stumbled toward the bed, she didn't pull back. Didn't overthink it, just let herself feel. His hands on her skin, his breath against her neck. The solid weight of him above her, making her feel grounded instead of trapped. Clothes disappeared piece by piece. Jin-Woo paused at every new revelation of skin, mapping her body with his hands and mouth like he was memorizing her. When Keisha reached for the buttons of his shirt, her fingers shaking slightly, he stilled them with his own hands. "We can stop," he said. "Anytime. Just say the word and we stop." "I don't want to stop," Keisha said, and she meant it. This might be reckless, might be the worst decision she'd ever made. But it was her decision, her choice, and that made all the difference. They made love slowly, carefully, Jin-Woo's control never quite slipping, even as his breath came faster, and his hands gripped her hips hard enough to leave marks. He watched her face the entire time, studying her reactions, adjusting to what made her gasp and what made her arch into him. It was intense and overwhelming, and nothing like Keisha had expected. After, they lay tangled together in his bed, Keisha's head on his chest, his fingers tracing idle patterns on her bare shoulder. The city lights cast shadows across the ceiling, and in the quiet, Keisha felt something shift inside her, like a door opening, like possibility. Stay, Jin-Woo murmured into her hair. Not just tonight. Stay. Let's see what this could be. Keisha closed her eyes, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her cheek. She knew this was dangerous, knew she was falling for a man who had taken her against her will, who operated in a world of shadows and violence, who might never be fully honest with her about who and what he really was. But she also knew that for the first time in her 26 years, someone saw her, really saw her, not as a foster kid or a maid or a statistic, but as Keisha, complex and flawed and worthy of attention. Okay, she whispered. I'll stay. Thank you, Jin-Woo said, and he sounded like she'd given him the world instead of just agreeing not to leave. His arms tightened around her. I'll make this worth it, I promise. Keisha wanted to believe him, wanted to believe this could be something real instead of something complicated. But as she drifted towards sleep in his arms, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were both standing on the edge of something, either a beginning or an ending, she wasn't sure which. And somewhere in the back of her mind, Sung-min's words echoed. When you realize she's not who you think she is, remember, I offered first. What did he know that Jin-Woo didn't? What secret was waiting to surface? And when it did, would they survive it? The next 2 weeks were the happiest Keisha could remember being in her entire life, which terrified her more than any of the fear that had come before. Jin-Woo was attentive without being suffocating, present without being controlling. He still disappeared during the day for his mysterious business, but he always came back for lunch, and now those meals ended with lingering kisses in the kitchen that sometimes migrated to the bedroom. Keisha's coursework progressed smoothly. She aced her taxation exam, scoring a perfect 100, and Jin-Woo celebrated by taking her to an expensive restaurant overlooking the city. She wore a dress he'd bought, emerald green silk that hugged her curves and made her mahogany skin glow, and tried not to feel like Cinderella at the ball, knowing midnight would eventually come. But the facade started to crack on a Thursday evening when Jin-Woo came home with tension written in every line of his body. He barely touched his dinner, just pushed food around his plate while staring at nothing. His jaw clenched so tight, Keisha worried he'd crack a tooth. What's wrong? She finally asked, setting down her fork. Business, Jin-Woo said, the same vague answer he always gave. But this time, there was something else in his voice, something that sounded like dread. What kind of business? He looked at her then, really looked at her, and Keisha saw conflict warring in his dark eyes. The kind I promised myself I'd keep you away from. Jin-Woo, I have a dinner tomorrow night, he interrupted. Business associates, important people. I need you to come with me. Keisha blinked at the sudden shift. Okay, why does that make you look like you're going to a funeral? Because these people, they're not good people, Keisha. They're part of a world I've been trying to keep you separate from. But they're expecting to meet you, and if I don't bring you, it will raise questions I can't afford to answer right now. What kind of questions? Jin-Woo stood, began pacing the dining room like a caged animal. Questions about why I traded valuable territory for you? Questions about what you mean to me? Questions that will make you a target if I answer them honestly and a liability if I don't. Fear coiled in Keisha's stomach. I don't understand. What are you saying? I'm saying that tomorrow night you need to play a role. You need to be... He stopped, ran a hand through his hair, disrupting its usually perfect style. You need to be someone I'm protecting, someone under my control, not someone I care about, not someone who matters. The words hurt more than they should have. So I'm supposed to pretend to be what? Your prisoner? Your possession? Yes, Jin-Woo said bluntly. Because if these people think you're anything more than that, they'll use you against me. And I can't... His voice cracked slightly. I can't lose you, Keisha. Not after I just found you. Keisha stood, crossed to where he was standing by the window overlooking the city. She could see their reflection in the glass. Her in jeans and a sweater, him in his usual suit, both of them looking like they belonged to different worlds, which she supposed they did. Tell me who these people are, she said quietly. Tell me what you're really involved in, Jin-Woo. No more vague answers. No more half-truths. If you want me to walk into something dangerous, I deserve to know what I'm walking into. Jin-Woo closed his eyes, and for a moment, Keisha thought he would refuse. But then he spoke, his voice low and tired. My family is one of the most powerful Korean crime syndicates in Los Angeles. Trafficking, gambling, protection rackets. If it's illegal and profitable, we're involved. I was supposed to take over when my father retired. Supposed to expand the empire, make us even more untouchable. But you didn't want that, Keisha guessed. I didn't want any of it. I wanted out. Wanted a normal life, a legal business, a future that didn't involve looking over my shoulder constantly. His reflection met hers in the window. Maya was going to help me. She was documenting everything. The money laundering, the offshore accounts, all of it. She was building a case that would bring down the organization from the inside while giving me immunity in exchange for testimony. Keisha's breath caught. She was working with the FBI? No, she was working alone, trying to gather enough evidence before approaching them. She thought if she could prove I was trying to get out, that I was willing to cooperate, they'd protect us both. His laugh was bitter. She was naive, brilliant, but naive, and it got her killed. You said it was a car accident. That's what it looked like. That's what the police ruled. But Maya was murdered, Keisha. I know it in my bones. Someone found out what she was doing and made sure she couldn't finish. Who? Keisha asked, though she was afraid she already knew the answer. I don't know. That's the hell of it. I don't know who betrayed us. It could have been anyone. My uncle, who's next in line to lead. My cousin, who's always resented me. Sung-min, who's been trying to take over our territory for years. He turned to face her fully. Or even Chen, who had business dealings with everyone and might have heard something. The name made Keisha's stomach drop. Chen? My Chen? Your Chen has his fingers in a lot of pies, most of them rotten. Why do you think Sung-min was collecting a debt from him? It wasn't a legitimate loan. Keisha felt the ground shifting beneath her feet. So when you traded for me, I was taking you away from a man who might have been involved in Maya's death, taking you somewhere I could protect you. Jin-Woo cupped her face, his touch gentle despite the intensity in his eyes. And yes, at first it was because you looked like her. Because I saw you and thought maybe I could solve the mystery of what happened to her by understanding you. But then I became something else, Keisha finished quietly. Then you became everything, Jin-Woo corrected. And now I have to take you into a room full of predators and pretend you mean nothing to me. Have to let them look at you and judge you and possibly threaten you. And I have to stay calm and controlled when every instinct I have is screaming at me to keep you away from them. Keisha understood now why he'd looked so tense. What happens if I don't go? They'll think I'm hiding you because you're important, which you are. His thumb stroked her cheekbones. And they'll come looking for you. At least if you're at the dinner, I can keep you in my sight, can intervene if things go wrong. You mean if someone tries to hurt me? I won't let that happen, Jin-Woo said fiercely. I'll die before I let anyone hurt you. That's not comforting, Keisha said, but she leaned into his touch anyway. Okay, I'll go. I'll play whatever role you need me to play. But Jin-Woo? She held his gaze. After tomorrow, no more secrets. No more half-truths. If we're doing this, whatever this is, I need honesty. All of it, even the ugly parts. Deal, Jin-Woo said, and sealed it with a kiss that tasted like promises and fear in equal measure. The next evening, Keisha stood in front of her mirror, barely recognizing herself. The dress Jin-Woo had provided was stunning, a floor-length black gown with a slit up one thigh, elegant and understated and clearly expensive. Mrs. Lee had helped style her natural hair into an elaborate updo, leaving a few carefully arranged curls to frame her face. Diamond earrings, borrowed from some mysterious source Jin-Woo wouldn't explain, glittered against her mahogany skin. She looked sophisticated, expensive, like someone who belonged on Jin-Woo's arm, like someone worth trading territory for. Jin-Woo appeared in her doorway, and his sharp intake of breath made Keisha's stomach flutter. He looked devastating in a black suit with a crisp white shirt, his hair perfectly styled, every inch the powerful businessman. But it was the way he looked at her, like she'd stolen the breath from his lungs, that made her feel truly beautiful. "You're stunning," he said quietly, crossing the room to stand behind her. His hands settled on her bare shoulders, warm against her skin. Their eyes met in the mirror. "Almost too stunning. Every man in that room is going to want you." "But I'm yours," Keisha said, playing the role already. "Right? That's what I'm supposed to project, that I belong to you." "You don't belong to me," Jin-Woo said, his voice tight. "But yes, that's what they need to believe, that you're under my protection, my companion." "Your possession," Keisha corrected, and felt him flinch. "I hate this," Jin-Woo admitted. "Hate putting you in this position. Hate—" "Then let's get it over with," Keisha interrupted. She turned in his arms, straightened his already perfect tie. "I'm tougher than I look, Jin-Woo. Foster care taught me how to survive uncomfortable situations with dangerous people. I can handle one dinner party." "These aren't foster parents," Jin-Woo warned. "These are criminals who've killed people for less than a perceived insult." "Then I'll be very careful not to insult anyone." Keisha stood on her toes, kissed him quickly before she could lose her nerve. "Come on, let's go face your world." The restaurant was exclusive and private, the kind of place that didn't have a sign and didn't advertise. Jin-Woo led her through an unmarked door and down a hallway to a private dining room where 6 people were already gathered around a table set with crystal and silver. Keisha recognized Sungmin immediately. He was in a corner, drink in hand, watching her enter with those warm brown eyes that somehow managed to look calculating and amused at the same time. The others were strangers, but she could feel the weight of their stares as Jin-Woo guided her into the room with a possessive hand on her lower back. "Park," an older Korean man said, standing. He had steel gray hair and cold eyes that swept over Keisha like she was livestock. "And this must be the reason you gave up the eastern routes." "Mr. Kim," Jin-Woo said with a slight bow of respect, "may I introduce Keisha Williams?" Keisha started to extend her hand, but Jin-Woo's fingers tightened warningly on her back. Right. She wasn't an equal here. She was a possession. She lowered her hand, kept her eyes down, let Jin-Woo present her like a prize. "Interesting choice," Kim said, circling her slowly. Keisha's skin crawled, but she held still. "She's quite beautiful, I'll give you that. But trading territory for a woman? That's not like you, Park. You've always been practical." "She's more than just beautiful," Jin-Woo said, his voice carefully neutral. "She's an asset, intelligent, educated, discreet." "Discreet?" A woman's voice cut through the room like a knife, and Keisha looked up to see someone entering through another door. The woman was breathtaking. Korean, around 30, with the kind of beauty that belonged on magazine covers. She wore a white designer dress that probably cost more than Keisha's college tuition, and her long black hair fell in a perfect sheet down her back. But it was her eyes that made Keisha's breath catch, cold and calculating, and filled with something that looked like pure hatred. "Hana," Jin-Woo said, and Keisha felt him tense beside her. "I didn't expect you here." "No?" Hana's smile was sharp as broken glass. "That's disappointing. I was very much looking forward to meeting your pet." She crossed the room, her heels clicking on the hardwood, and stopped in front of Keisha. My, she does look familiar, doesn't she?" Up close, Keisha could see the resemblance, the shape of the eyes, the curve of the cheekbones. This woman looked like the photograph Jin-Woo had shown her. This woman looked like Maya. "You're her sister," Keisha breathed before she could stop herself. "And you're her replacement," Hana shot back. "How convenient for Jin-Woo. One Maya dies, another appears. Tell me, do you giggle at his jokes the way she did? Do you let him pretend he's saving you while he ruins you?" "Hana, that's enough," Jin-Woo warned, his voice dropping to something dangerous. "Is it?" Hana's eyes never left Keisha's face. "Because I think we're just getting started. You see, Keisha Williams, yes, I know your full name, your foster care history, your little community college dreams. You're not the first woman Jin-Woo has tried to save. My sister was smart too, ambitious. She wanted to be a forensic accountant." She paused, let the words sink in. "Does any of this sound familiar?" Keisha's blood ran cold. You're lying. Am I? Hana circled her now, a predator toying with prey. Tell me, has Jin-Woo mentioned that he's been watching you for 3 months? That he knew everything about you before you ever met? That he specifically chose you because you fit the profile of his dead fiancée? Stop, Jin-Woo said, his voice tight with barely controlled fury. Why? Is the truth uncomfortable? Hana laughed, the sound brittle and cruel. My sister was his pet project, his redemption. He was going to use her to bring down our family's business, give testimony, be the hero. And then she died conveniently before she could ruin everything. She stopped in front of Keisha again. Now you're here, looking just like her, studying the same field, living in his penthouse. Tell me, how long until you mysteriously die in a car accident too? The room had gone silent. Keisha could feel everyone watching, waiting. Jin-Woo's hand on her back was trembling, with rage or fear she couldn't tell. My sister's death was no accident, Hana continued, her voice dropping to something soft and deadly. She was murdered, and Jin-Woo knows it, don't you, darling? That's why you're so desperate to protect this one. You couldn't save Maya. You think you can save her replacement. Enough! Jin-Woo's voice cracked like a whip through the room. We're leaving. But we haven't even had dinner yet, Hana said innocently. I was so looking forward to getting to know Keisha, to warning her about what happens to women who get too close to you. Jin-Woo, Keisha said quietly, her mind racing with everything Hana had revealed, with all the questions now flooding her thoughts. I want to hear what she has to say. No, you don't, Jin-Woo said, already pulling her toward the door. But Sung-min stepped into their path, blocking their exit. Let her stay, Park, he said, and there was something in his voice, something that sounded almost like sympathy. She deserves to know the truth, all of it. The truth? Jin-Woo's laugh was sharp. From you? The man who's been trying to take over our territory for 5 years? The man who was with Maya the night she died? The room erupted in murmurs. Sung-min's expression flickered. Surprise, maybe, or guilt. But he didn't deny it. Yes, he said simply. I was with Maya. We were lovers. Did Jin-Woo forget to mention that part? Keisha's world tilted. She looked at Jin-Woo, saw the truth written on his face, and something inside her cracked. You knew, she whispered. You knew she was having an affair, and you didn't tell me? It's complicated, Jin-Woo started. It's always complicated with you. Keisha pulled away from him, her voice rising. What else did you lie about? What else did you conveniently forget to mention? Keisha, please. No. She backed away, and every eye in the room was on her now, hungry and curious. I need air. I need to think. She turned and fled, her heels clicking on the hardwood as she ran down the hallway toward the exit. Behind her, she heard Jin-Woo calling her name, heard the scrape of chairs as people stood, but she didn't stop, couldn't stop. She burst through the restaurant's front door into the cool Los Angeles night, gasping for breath, her carefully styled hair already starting to fall down. The valet looked at her with concern, but she waved him off, just kept walking down the sidewalk, the city lights blurring through the tears she refused to let fall. Everything was a lie. Jin-Woo had chosen her specifically because she fit Maya's profile, had been watching her, studying her, preparing to use her the same way he'd used Maya. She wasn't special. She wasn't chosen for who she was. She was just a replacement. Just another project for a man with a savior complex and a guilty conscience. Strong hands gripped her shoulders, and she spun around expecting Jin-Woo. But it was Sung-min who stood there, his expression unreadable in the streetlight's glow. Come with me, he said quietly. Let me tell you everything Jin-Woo won't. Let me show you who he really is. And then you can decide if you want to stay with him or walk away. Keisha should have refused, should have pulled away, called for Jin-Woo, done anything other than what she did. But she was tired of being kept in the dark, tired of half-truths and careful omissions, tired of not knowing which parts of her life were real and which were carefully constructed lies. Okay, she said, show me. Sung-min's car was sleek and black, just like Jin-Woo's. But where Jin-Woo's felt like a cage of luxury, Sung-min's felt strangely neutral. He opened the door for her, and Keisha hesitated for just a moment before sliding into the passenger seat. Her phone, the one Jin-Woo had given her, buzzed insistently in her small clutch purse. She ignored it. "Where are we going?" she asked as Sung-min pulled away from the curb. Through the rear-view mirror, she could see Jin-Woo emerging from the restaurant, his face a mask of fury and panic. Their eyes met for a split second before Sung-min turned the corner, and then he was gone. "Somewhere we can talk without Jin-Woo's shadow hanging over us," Sung-min said. He drove smoothly, confidently through the Los Angeles streets. "Somewhere you can hear the truth and decide for yourself what you believe." "Why would you tell me the truth?" Keisha challenged, wrapping her arms around herself. The evening air was cool and her dress provided little warmth. "What do you gain from this?" Sung-min glanced at her, and in the passing streetlights, his expression was surprisingly earnest. "Maybe I gain nothing. Maybe I just owe it to Maya's memory to make sure another woman doesn't get destroyed by Jin-Woo's good intentions." They drove for 20 minutes, leaving the glittering downtown behind for a quieter neighborhood in Koreatown. Sung-min pulled up to a modest apartment building, nothing like the luxury Keisha had become accustomed to in Jin-Woo's penthouse. He parked and came around to open her door, offering his hand. Keisha didn't take it. She got out on her own, following him into the building and up 3 flights of stairs to an apartment that was clean but lived in. Books on the shelves, dishes in the sink, a jacket thrown over the back of a chair. It felt like a real home, not a showroom. "Sit," Sung-min said, gesturing to the couch. "I'll make tea." "I don't want tea," Keisha said, but she sat anyway, her legs suddenly too weak to hold her. "I want answers. Start talking." Sung-min nodded, settled into the chair across from her. "Okay, the truth. All of it. Maya and I met 2 years before she died. She was working on her accounting degree at UCLA, and I was exactly what Jin-Woo thought I was. A rival, a criminal. Someone trying to expand my territory at the expense of his family's organization. So how did you meet her?" "She was auditing my legitimate business holdings," Sung-min said with a slight smile. "I own several restaurants, a few import-export companies, all legal or mostly legal. Maya was brilliant. She saw through my books in about an hour, realized the numbers didn't add up. She should have reported me to the authorities. Instead, she confronted me directly." Keisha could picture it, a young woman with fire in her eyes, refusing to be intimidated by a dangerous man. "Why?" "Because she was investigating Jin-Woo's family," Sung-min said. "She'd been engaged to him for 6 months by then, and she was starting to see cracks in his story. He told her he wanted out of the criminal life, that he was just biding his time until he could make a clean break. But Maya was too smart to believe that without proof. She started digging, and when she found my businesses, she thought maybe I could help her understand what she was dealing with." "Did you?" "I did. We became collaborators at first. She'd show me what she found in Jin-Woo's financial records, and I'd help her understand what it meant. The shell corporations, the money laundering, the offshore accounts. Between the two of us, we started building a case that could bring down half the Korean crime syndicates in Los Angeles." Sung-min's expression grew distant, sad. "And somewhere along the way, we fell in love." Keisha's stomach twisted. "You were both betraying Jin-Woo." "Yes," Sung-min admitted. "But here's what Jin-Woo won't tell you. He was betraying Maya too. He knew she was investigating him. He'd known for months, and instead of being honest with her, instead of actually leaving the criminal life like he'd promised, he was using her. Using the information she was gathering to eliminate his rivals and consolidate his own power." "That doesn't make sense," Keisha protested. "Jin-Woo said Maya was helping him get immunity, that she was building a case to protect him." "That's what he told her," Sung-min interrupted. "But think about it, Keisha. Use that brilliant accountant brain of yours. If Jin-Woo really wanted immunity, really wanted to testify against his family, why didn't he just go to the FBI himself? Why did he need Maya to build the case? Why did he let her put herself in danger?" Because he was using her. The realization hit Keisha like a physical blow. He wanted her to do the dangerous work, wanted her to be the one taking the risk while he stayed protected. Exactly. And when Maya finally figured that out, when she realized Jin-Woo was never planning to leave his life of crime, that he was just using her to gain more power within the organization, Sung-min leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "She came to me, told me she was leaving him. that she was pregnant with my child and we were going to disappear together, start over somewhere Jin-Woo couldn't find us. But she died before you could leave. 2 days before, Sung-min confirmed. We were supposed to meet at midnight on Mulholland Drive. She was bringing all the evidence she'd gathered, all the files, everything. We were going to drive straight to San Francisco, then fly to Seoul where I have family who could protect us. But she never made it to our meeting point. His voice cracked slightly. By the time I got there, the police were already at the scene. Her car had gone off the road. They said she lost control, that it was an accident. But Maya was the best driver I knew. She wouldn't have lost control, not on a road she'd driven 100 times. You think she was murdered? I know she was murdered. Sung-min stood, crossed to a bookshelf, and pulled down a wooden box. He opened it, revealing a stack of photographs and documents. After she died, I got access to her apartment. Jin-Woo was too devastated to think about securing her things, and I knew where she hid her spare key. I found these. He spread the photographs on the coffee table between them. They showed Jin-Woo in various locations, meeting with men Keisha didn't recognize. In several of the photos, money was changing hands. In others, there were weapons visible. These were taken in the weeks before Maya died, Sung-min explained. She was documenting everything, building her case. But look at the dates. He pointed to the timestamps. These meetings, they all happened after Jin-Woo claimed he was trying to get out. After he told Maya he was done with the criminal life. He was lying to her, Keisha, using her love for him to get access to intelligence about his rivals while he consolidated his own power. Keisha's hands trembled as she looked through the photographs. There was Jin-Woo, the man she'd fallen for, the man who'd held her so tenderly and promised to protect her. But in these images, he looked different, harder, colder, like a stranger. There's more, Sung-min said quietly. He handed her a diary, worn leather, the pages filled with delicate handwriting. This is Maya's diary. The one Jin-Woo has is incomplete, edited. He removed the pages where she talks about discovering his lies, about planning to leave him. I made copies before I returned the original to her apartment, where I knew he'd find it. Keisha opened the diary with shaking hands. The entries were dated, starting from 2 years before Maya's death. The early entries were sweet, full of love and hope. Maya wrote about meeting Jin-Woo, about believing he was different from other men in his world, about thinking she could save him. But as Keisha flipped forward, the tone changed. Doubt crept into the entries. Questions about discrepancies in Jin-Woo's stories, about meetings he wouldn't explain, about money that appeared and disappeared from accounts she was helping him organize. And then, 3 months before her death, I think Jin-Woo has been lying to me from the beginning. I found records of meetings he claimed never happened. Money he said was for legitimate business, but was clearly from drug trafficking. He's not trying to leave the organization. He's trying to take it over. And he's been using my research to do it. I'm such a fool. I wanted to believe I could save him, that our love was enough to change him. But he never wanted to change. He wanted to use me. Keisha's vision blurred. She kept reading, watching Maya's heartbreak unfold on the page, watching her fall in love with Sung-min while trying to extricate herself from Jin-Woo's web of lies. The last entry was dated 2 days before Maya's death. I'm leaving tomorrow night. Sung-min and I are going to disappear, start over with our baby. I'm terrified Jin-Woo will find out before we can leave. But Sung-min has promised to protect us. I want to believe him. I have to believe him. Because if I don't, if I stay, Jin-Woo will destroy me the way he destroys everything he claims to love. He doesn't love me. He loves the idea of me. Loves having someone to save, someone to fix, someone to control. I won't be that person anymore. I'm choosing myself. I'm choosing our baby. I'm choosing a future without him. The words blurred as tears finally spilled down Keisha's cheeks. It was like reading her own thoughts, her own fears written by someone else's hand. Maya had felt the same confusion, the same pull between what she wanted to believe and what she knew to be true. I'm sorry, Sung-min said softly. I know this is hard to hear, but you needed to know who Jin-Woo really is, what he's capable of. Did he kill her? Keisha asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Did Jin-Woo kill Maya? I don't know, Sung-min admitted. I've spent 5 years trying to find proof, but I have nothing concrete. What I do know is that Jin-Woo found out about Maya's plans the night before she was supposed to leave. I don't know how. Maybe she let something slip. Maybe he was monitoring her more closely than we realized. But he knew. And the next night she died. Keisha set down the diary, her hands shaking too badly to hold it anymore. Why are you telling me all this? Why now? Because when I made that deal with Jin-Woo, when I agreed to let him take you in exchange for territory, I thought I was doing the right thing, Sung-min said. I thought he'd keep you safe, that maybe you'd be the thing that finally changed him. But then I saw the way he looked at you at that dinner, the way Hana looked at you, and I realized you're not safe with him. You're just Maya 2.0. Another project, another woman to control and use and destroy when you stop being useful. He said he loves me, Keisha whispered. I'm sure he does, in his own way. Jin-Woo loved Maya too, but his love is toxic, Keisha. It's suffocating. It's the kind of love that demands you sacrifice yourself to save him, that requires you to be smaller so he can feel bigger. Is that the kind of love you want? Keisha stood abruptly, needing to move, needing to think. She paced Sung-min's small living room, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. Everything she thought she knew about Jin-Woo, about their relationship, about her place in his life, it was all built on lies and manipulation and the ghost of a dead woman. But even as the evidence stacked up, even as Maya's words echoed in her mind, a small part of her resisted. Because she'd seen vulnerability in Jin-Woo, real vulnerability, when he'd taken down Maya's photographs, when he'd given her a phone and told her she could leave, when he'd held her after they made love and whispered that she was better than he deserved. Those moments couldn't all be lies, could they? I need to talk to him, Keisha said finally. I need to hear his side of this. Give him a chance to explain. He'll tell you what you want to hear, Sung-min warned. He's very good at that. It's how he kept Maya under his control for so long. Maybe, but I need to hear it from him. She trailed off, not sure how to explain the pull she still felt toward Jin-Woo despite everything. I need to look him in the eye and know for sure whether this is all a lie or if there's something real buried underneath the manipulation. Sung-min studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, I'll take you back to him. But Keisha, he stood, crossed to her, and gently took her hands. If you decide to leave him, if you need help getting away, call me. I owe Maya that much. I owe you that much. I won't let another woman be destroyed by Jin-Woo Park. Thank you, Keisha said quietly. She meant it. Whatever Sung-min's motives, whatever complicated history existed between him and Jin-Woo and Maya, he was offering her something Jin-Woo never had, a choice without pressure, help without expectation. The drive back to Jin-Woo's penthouse was silent. Keisha stared out the window, watching the city lights blur past, trying to organize her thoughts into something coherent. When Sung-min pulled up to the building, she saw Jin-Woo's SUV parked haphazardly by the entrance, like he'd abandoned it in a hurry. He's probably losing his mind, Sung-min said. Worried about what I've told you. Worried about losing control of the narrative. Good, Keisha said, surprising herself with the venom in her voice. Let him worry. Let him feel one fraction of the fear and confusion I've been feeling. She got out of the car without saying goodbye, her heels clicking on the pavement as she marched toward the entrance. The doorman looked relieved to see her, quickly opening the door and gesturing toward the elevator. Mr. Park has been very concerned, Miss Williams, he said carefully. He's been calling down every 5 minutes asking if you'd returned. I'm sure he has, Keisha muttered. She rode the elevator up to the penthouse, her heart pounding harder with each floor. What was she going to say? How was she supposed to confront him about everything she'd learned? The elevator doors opened directly into the penthouse, and Jin-Woo was there, pacing in front of the windows like a caged animal. He'd shed his jacket and tie, his shirt was partially unbuttoned, and his usually perfect hair was a mess like he'd been running his hands through it repeatedly. When he saw her, relief flooded his face so intensely it was almost painful to witness. Keisha, thank God. I thought, when you left with Sung-min, I thought... He crossed to her in 3 long strides, his hands coming up to cup her face, his eyes searching hers desperately. Are you okay? Did he hurt you? What did he tell you? Keisha stepped back, out of his reach. The hurt that flashed across his face was almost enough to make her reconsider, almost enough to make her fall back into his arms and pretend everything was fine. Almost. He told me the truth, she said quietly. About Maya, about you, about why I'm really here. Jin-Woo's expression shuddered, the vulnerability disappearing behind careful control. And you believed him? Sungmin, who's been trying to destroy me for years? Who was having an affair with my fiancée behind my back? I believe Maya, Keisha countered. She pulled the folded pages she'd taken from Maya's diary out of her clutch. Sungmin had let her keep copies. I read her words, Jin-Woo, in her own handwriting. She knew. She knew you were using her. She knew you were never planning to actually leave your criminal life. She knew, Keisha's voice cracked. She knew she was just a tool to you, a means to an end. That's not true, Jin-Woo said, but there was something in his voice. Not quite a lie, but not quite truth either. I loved Maya. I still love her memory. What Sungmin showed you was taken out of context, manipulated to make me look like exactly what you are, Keisha interrupted. A man who controls people by making them think they need saving? A man who finds broken women and offers them dreams while using them for his own purposes? She took a shaking breath. Tell me something, Jin-Woo. Did you know I wanted to be a forensic accountant before you ever approached Chen about me? Did you know I had the same dreams as Maya? The same skills? The same vulnerable past? Jin-Woo's silence was answer enough. Oh my God, Keisha breathed. You chose me specifically because I was like her. You weren't trying to move on from Maya. You were trying to recreate her, replace her with someone easier to control, someone with fewer connections, someone who, the realization hit her like a physical blow. Someone who would be grateful enough for scraps of affection that she wouldn't question what you were really doing. No, Jin-Woo said, and now there was real desperation in his voice. No, Keisha, that's not. At first, yes. At first I saw the similarities and thought maybe I could have a second chance. Could do things right this time. But then I got to know you, the real you, and you became so much more than that. You're not Maya. You're better than Maya. You're... Stop, Keisha said, holding up her hand. Just stop. Do you hear yourself? You're better than Maya. You keep saying that like it's a compliment, like comparing me to your dead fiancé is somehow flattering. But all it tells me is that I'm still being measured against her, still being evaluated based on how well I fit into the role you've designed for me. Jin-Woo looked stricken, like she'd struck him. I'm sorry, I didn't mean... I just meant that you're stronger than she was, more resilient. You've survived things Maya never had to face, and it made me easier to manipulate, Keisha finished bitterly, because I'm so desperate for love, for security, for someone to see me, that I'd overlook all the red flags, all the lies. All the ways you've controlled my life since the moment you decided you wanted me. She felt tears threatening again, but refused to let them fall. Did you ever love me, Jin-Woo? The real me? Or did you just love the idea of saving me? Both, Jin-Woo said, and the raw honesty in his voice nearly broke her. I loved the idea of you, yes. Loved thinking I could protect you the way I failed to protect Maya. But then you challenged me, made me laugh, made me want to be better than I am. Somewhere along the way, I fell in love with you, Keisha. Not Maya's replacement, you. I don't believe you, Keisha whispered, even though part of her desperately wanted to. I don't know if I can ever believe you again. Jin-Woo's face crumpled, all his careful control dissolving into something raw and devastated. What can I do? How can I prove to you that this is real, that you matter to me beyond whatever complicated history I have with Maya? I don't know, Keisha said honestly. Maybe you can't. Maybe the foundation we built this on was so rotten that there's no way to salvage it. She walked past him toward her bedroom, needing space, needing air. I need time to think, to figure out who I am without you telling me, to decide if staying here is healing or just a different kind of prison. Keisha, please. Don't, she said, turning to face him one last time. Don't beg. Don't make promises. Don't do anything except give me space to figure this out. Can you do that? Can you give me what I need instead of what you think I should want? Jin-Woo looked like she'd asked him to cut out his own heart, but after a long moment, he nodded. Okay, take your time. I'll be here when you're ready to talk. If you're ever ready to talk. Keisha retreated to her bedroom and locked the door, then collapsed on the bed she'd slept in for the past 3 weeks. The room that had started to feel like home now felt like a cage again. A beautiful, comfortable cage, but a cage nonetheless. She pulled out her phone, the one Jin-Woo had given her, and stared at it for a long time. She could call someone, could ask for help, could leave right now and never look back. But where would she go? And more importantly, did she want to? Because despite everything, despite the lies and manipulation and the ghost of Maya hanging over them, Keisha had felt something real with Jin-Woo. In the quiet moments, in the vulnerable confessions, in the way he looked at her like she was the answer to every question he'd ever asked. Maybe that was real, or maybe she was just another woman falling for a beautiful lie. Either way, she needed to figure it out on her own terms. Not Jin-Woo's, not Sung-min's, hers. Keisha curled up on the bed, still in her elegant black dress, and let the tears finally come. For Maya, who died trying to escape. For herself, trapped in the same complicated dance. For Jin-Woo, who might be exactly the monster everyone said he was, or might be just a broken man trying desperately to be better. Tomorrow she'd decide what to do. Tomorrow she'd figure out if love built on lies could ever become something true. Tonight, she just needed to cry. Keisha didn't sleep that night. She lay in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying every moment with Jin-Woo through the new lens of everything she'd learned. Every tender gesture, every vulnerable confession, every promise. Were any of them real? Or was she just the latest version of a role Maya had played before her? Around 3 in the morning, she heard footsteps in the hallway. They stopped outside her door, and she could sense Jin-Woo on the other side, standing there in the darkness, waiting, hoping, but he didn't knock, didn't try to force his way in or demand her attention. After several minutes, the footsteps retreated. That small gesture, that restraint, meant something. Or maybe she just wanted it to mean something. When dawn finally broke, painting her room in shades of gold and pink, Keisha made a decision. She couldn't run from this, couldn't hide in her bedroom indefinitely, letting fear and doubt make her choices for her. She needed to confront Jin-Woo directly, look him in the eye, and demand the complete truth. And then, and only then, could she decide if there was anything worth salvaging between them. She showered and dressed simply. Jeans and a sweater, her natural hair loose around her shoulders. No armor, no pretense. Just Keisha, whoever that turned out to be. Jin-Woo was in the kitchen when she emerged, making coffee with the kind of careful precision that suggested he hadn't slept either. He wore sweatpants and a t-shirt, his hair unstyled, his feet bare. He looked younger like this, more human, more real. When he heard her enter, he turned, and the hope that flared in his eyes was almost painful to witness. Keisha, I wasn't sure you'd... He stopped, seemed to catch himself. Coffee? Yes, she said, settling onto one of the breakfast bar stools. And the truth, all of it. No more half-stories, no more careful omissions. If there's any chance of salvaging this, I need complete honesty, starting now. Jin-Woo poured 2 cups of coffee, hers with cream and 1 sugar, his black, and set them on the counter. He remained standing, his hands gripping the edge of the granite like he needed the support. Okay, he said quietly. Complete honesty. Ask me anything. Did you choose me because I reminded you of Maya? Yes. The answer came without hesitation. I saw you at Chen's mansion 6 months ago. I was there for a business meeting, and you walked past carrying a stack of books. Accounting textbooks. Your hair was pulled back, and for just a second I thought... He stopped, swallowed hard. I thought I saw Maya, so I started researching you. Found out about your background, your dreams, your situation, and I thought maybe I could have a second chance. Could save someone this time. So you orchestrated the situation with Chen and Sung-min. The trade. No. Jin-Woo's eyes met hers. That part was genuine coincidence. Chen really did owe Sung-min money, And I really did have business with both of them that night. But when Sungmin asked me to name my price, when I saw you standing there looking terrified and invisible, he paused. I made a choice in that moment, a selfish choice. I took you because I wanted to, because some part of me thought maybe you could fill the hole Maya left behind. And now, Keisha asked, her chest tight, what am I to you now? Everything, Jin-Woo said simply. And I know that sounds like a line, like manipulation, but it's the truth. You became real to me, Keisha, not Maya's shadow, not a replacement. You, with your sharp tongue and your brilliant mind and your fierce determination to make something of yourself despite every obstacle life threw at you. You're nothing like Maya, and that's what made me fall in love with you. Sungmin said you were using Maya to consolidate power, that you never intended to actually leave your criminal life. Jin-Woo's jaw clenched. That's partially true. I was using the information Maya gathered. Yes, I was eliminating rivals, strengthening my position, but not for the reasons Sungmin thinks. He moved around the counter, close enough to touch, but still respecting her space. My father is dying, Keisha. Has been for the past 3 years. And when he dies, there's going to be a war for control of the organization. A bloody, brutal war that will destroy families and businesses and lives. I've been consolidating power not because I want to lead the organization, but because I'm the only one who can prevent that war. The only one strong enough to dissolve the organization from within without causing chaos. That's why you needed Maya's documentation, why you need evidence of all the crimes. Exactly. I can't just walk away. Others would fill the power vacuum and make things worse. I need to dismantle it carefully, strategically, in a way that protects innocent people who depend on our businesses for their livelihoods. He ran a hand through his already disheveled hair. Maya understood that at first, but then she got scared, thought I was becoming the thing I was trying to destroy. She lost faith in me. Can you blame her? Keisha asked. From her perspective, you were just another criminal gaining power. How was she supposed to know your real intentions? She wasn't, because I couldn't tell her the whole truth without putting her in danger. Jin-Woo's voice was heavy with regret. The fewer people who knew what I was really doing, the safer everyone was. But my silence made her doubt me, made her turn to Sungmin for comfort, and I lost her because I was too afraid to trust her with the truth. Is that why she died? Because she knew too much? I don't know, Jin-Woo admitted, and the anguish in his voice was raw. I've spent 5 years trying to find out who killed her and why. The car accident could have been genuine, could have been just a tragic loss of control at the wrong moment, or it could have been murder. Someone in my family who found out what Maya was documenting. Someone in Sungmin's organization who saw her as a threat. Or even, he stopped, his hands curling into fists. Even what? Even Sungmin himself, Jin-Woo said quietly. I don't want to believe it. Don't want to think he'd kill the woman he claimed to love. But Sungmin had as much to lose from Maya's evidence as anyone. If she'd gone to the FBI with what she knew about both of our organizations, it would have destroyed him too. Keisha's head was spinning. Everyone had motives. Everyone had secrets. The truth was buried under so many layers of lies and deception that finding it felt impossible. Show me something, she said suddenly. Show me proof that you're really trying to dismantle your father's organization. Show me evidence that you're not just another criminal making excuses. Jin-Woo studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, come with me. He led her to his home office, a room she'd only glimpsed in passing. It was dominated by a large desk and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, with a wall of monitors showing various security feeds. Jin-Woo moved to a painting on the wall, an abstract piece that probably cost more than Keisha's education, and swung it aside to reveal a safe. He entered a code, pressed his thumb to a scanner, and the safe opened with a soft click. Inside were stacks of documents, flash drives, and a leather-bound ledger. Jin-Woo pulled out several folders and spread them on his desk. This is everything, he said. 5 years of documentation, financial records, testimony transcripts, photographs, recordings. Everything needed to bring down not just my father's organization, but 3 other major crime syndicates in Los Angeles. All organized, all verified, all ready to turn over to federal prosecutors. Keisha flipped through the folders with shaking hands. It was comprehensive. Meticulous detail about money laundering, human trafficking, drug distribution, illegal gambling operations. Names, dates, transaction records, everything a prosecutor would need to build an airtight case. "Why haven't you turned it in?" she asked. "Because I'm waiting for the right moment. My father is expected to die within the next 6 months. When that happens, there will be a brief window, maybe 2 weeks, when everyone is focused on the power transition. That's when I'll make my move. Turn over all the evidence, testify in exchange for immunity, and let the federal government dismantle what I've spent years building up. If I do it too soon, my father's lieutenants will just scatter and rebuild elsewhere. If I wait too long, the war for succession will have already started and innocent people will die in the crossfire." "So you've been playing both sides," Keisha said, beginning to understand. "Building power within the organization while simultaneously documenting everything for law enforcement. Walking a tightrope. Yes, and it's exhausting and dangerous, and I've made terrible choices along the way. Including," he reached out, hesitant, and when Keisha didn't pull away, he took her hand. "Including using Maya. I should have trusted her with the truth. Should have brought her into my confidence completely instead of asking her to work blind. Maybe if I had, she'd still be alive. You don't know that." "No, but I have to live with the possibility that my caution killed her." Jin-Woo's thumb traced circles on the back of Keisha's hand. "Which is why I'm telling you everything now, because I won't make the same mistake twice. I won't lose you because I was too afraid to trust you with the truth." Keisha looked down at their joined hands, at the evidence spread across his desk, at the weight of 5 years of secrets laid bare. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe that he was really one of the good guys, that his love for her was genuine, that they could have something real together. But wanting something didn't make it true. "Let me help," she said suddenly, the idea crystallizing even as she spoke. "I'm studying forensic accounting. Let me go through these records with you. Let me verify the evidence, make sure it's airtight. If you're really planning to turn this over to prosecutors, you need someone who understands financial documentation to make sure it'll hold up in court." Jin-Woo looked stunned. "Keisha, that would put you at enormous risk. If anyone found out you were helping me—" "Then keep it secret," Keisha interrupted, "the same way you kept Maya secret. But this time, let me be a real partner. Let me contribute something meaningful instead of just being the woman you're protecting. Let me prove to myself that I'm here for a reason beyond looking like your dead fiancé." Jin-Woo studied her face for a long moment, and Keisha could see the war playing out behind his eyes. The desire to protect her versus the need to trust her, the fear of losing her versus the hope of truly having her. Finally, he nodded. "Okay, partners. But the moment I think you're in danger, the moment anyone suspects what we're doing, we stop. Your safety is more important than any case." "Deal," Keisha said, and felt something shift between them. Not back to where they'd been. They could never go back to that innocent space before all the revelations. But forward, maybe, into something more honest, more equal, more real. They spent the next 3 days working side by side in Jin-Woo's office. Keisha applied everything she'd learned in her accounting courses to analyzing the financial records Jin-Woo had compiled. She found gaps, inconsistencies, areas that needed more documentation. Jin-Woo listened to her suggestions, trusted her expertise, treated her like the partner she'd asked to be. Mrs. Lee brought them meals they barely touched, too focused on the work. Keisha slept in her own room, but sometimes woke to find Jin-Woo asleep at his desk, surrounded by papers, exhausted from carrying this burden alone for so long. On the 4th day, as they were cross-referencing shipping manifests with bank transfers, Keisha's phone rang. Sung-min. She looked at Jin-Woo, who tensed but nodded. "Answer it. Put it on speaker." "Sung-min," Keisha said, accepting the call. "Keisha, I've been worried. Jin-Woo hasn't let you leave the penthouse in days. Should I be concerned?" "I'm fine," Keisha said. "Working on something. Why are you calling?" "Because I got an interesting phone call this morning. From Hana." Sung-min's voice was tight. "She's planning something, Keisha. Something aimed at you specifically. She's convinced herself that if she eliminates you, Jin-Woo will finally turn to her. She's unstable and dangerous, and I thought you should know. Jin-Woo's hands clenched on the desk. Where is she now? I don't know. She called from a blocked number, but she mentioned knowing your patterns, knowing when Mrs. Lee goes to market, knowing the security gaps in your building. Sung-min paused. Jin-Woo, I'm putting aside our rivalry to warn you. Get Keisha somewhere safe, now. The line went dead. Jin-Woo was already moving, pulling out his phone, making calls. Within minutes, he'd arranged for additional security, contacted the building management, alerted his people. But Keisha could see the fear in his eyes, the memory of losing Maya making him nearly frantic. I'm taking you to a safe house, he said. Somewhere Hana doesn't know about. Somewhere. No, Keisha interrupted. We use me as bait. Absolutely not. Think about it, Keisha pressed. Hana is unstable, obsessed. If we hide, she'll just keep planning, keep hunting. But if we give her an opportunity, a controlled opportunity, we can end this. Draw her out, record her confession, turn her over to the police. One less threat to worry about while you're preparing to move against your father's organization. It's too dangerous, Jin-Woo said, but Keisha could see him considering it, his strategic mind already mapping out possibilities. We'll have backup, security in place. I'll be wired, you'll be listening. And Hana wants to confront me. Wants me to know why she's better than Maya, better than me. She'll confess if given the chance. Unstable people always do. Jin-Woo paced the office, clearly torn. Finally, he stopped, turned to face her. If we do this, if you follow my lead exactly, any sign of real danger, you run. You don't try to be brave. You don't try to handle it yourself. You run and let my security team handle Hana. Understood? Understood, Keisha agreed. They spent the rest of the day planning. Mrs. Lee would go to market as usual, but with a security detail following at a distance. Jin-Woo would leave the penthouse for a business meeting, but would actually be stationed in the building's security office, monitoring everything. Keisha would be alone in the penthouse, but wired with audio and video, and with armed security stationed throughout the building. It was a trap, carefully baited and meticulously planned. The next morning unfolded according to plan. Mrs. Lee left at 10. Jin-Woo left at 10:30, kissing Keisha goodbye at the elevator with whispered warnings to be careful. And Keisha waited, her heart pounding, wondering if Hana would really be reckless enough to make her move. At 11:15, there was a knock on the penthouse door. Keisha checked the security monitor, knowing Jin-Woo could see the same feed. It was Hana, dressed elegantly as always, looking calm and composed. But there was something in her eyes, something wild and desperate that made Keisha's skin crawl. Taking a deep breath, Keisha opened the door. Hana, she said, keeping her voice neutral. This is a surprise. Is it? Hana smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I knew Jin-Woo would leave eventually. He always does. And I knew you'd be here alone, thinking you were safe in your little tower. She pushed past Keisha into the penthouse, looking around with disdain. My sister lived here once, did you know that? Before Jin-Woo moved her into her own apartment. Before he started pulling away from her. Before she died. I'm sorry about Maya, Keisha said carefully, aware of the wire under her sweater, aware that Jin-Woo was listening to every word. I know you loved her. Loved her? Hana laughed, the sound brittle. I hated her. She was weak and stupid, and she stole the one man I ever wanted. Jin-Woo was supposed to marry me. Our families had an understanding. But then Maya batted her eyes at him, and suddenly I didn't exist. Jin-Woo never loved you, Keisha said quietly. You know that, Hana. He's told you. He will, Hana insisted, turning to face Keisha with eyes that were definitely not sane. Once you're gone, once there's no one else to distract him, he'll see that I'm the right choice. The strong choice. Not weak like Maya, not broken like you. I'm not broken, Keisha said, finding strength in the words even as fear coiled in her stomach. And I'm not leaving. Yes, Hana said, and pulled a gun from her designer purse. You are.